Hi, mathletes. Today we're going to be able to answer the question, what is the correct graph to use with my data? Because depending on the kind of data that you have, there's a specific graph that goes with it. So first though, let's see what kind of data you have. So there's two different types. You could have categorical, which is words, or numerical, which is numbers. For the numerical, there's two different types. You could have discrete, which is counted. For example, let's say you're counting how many cars go by in the next hour, or continuous. Instead of counting the cars, maybe you're measuring the length of each car. So now you know the type of data that you have. Now we need to figure out the kind of graph that we need to make. So let's make a flow chart or look at this. Okay, so we're going to investigate it. So here, if we start here, the first question that you want to ask yourself is, are you using a measuring tool for the independent variable? In other words, are you using a tape measure? Are you using a timer, a graduated cylinder? Those are all different types of measuring tools. If you're not having to use a measuring tool, then you have to ask yourself, is your independent variable numbers or words? Well, let's say it's words. So let's say that your data is you were asking people their favorite animal. That would be called categorical data, again, because it's words, and your only choice is to make a bar chart. But let's say that your independent variable was numbers. In other words, let's say you were asking people how many pets they have. That would be a number for an answer. That would be called numeric discrete data. Again, you're not measuring it, you're just counting how many pets they have. So what kind of graph could you draw? Well, there's two different kinds. You could do a bar chart for this, but you could also do a scatter plot. You just wouldn't be drawing any lines on your scatter plot, they would just have the dots to show the data. But let's say that you are using a measuring tool. If you're using a measuring tool, that means that your data is numeric and continuous. And then you have to ask yourself, did you group your measurements? If you did not group your measurements, you could make a scatter plot. And if there is a clear relationship, you can draw a line of best fit. In other words, if it has a positive correlation or a negative correlation. If it is grouped, then you're going to make a histogram. So for scatter plots and histograms, I have made videos to show you how to make them, but also to explain why they're great as graphs and when we use them. So check out those videos. Just use the QR code over to the left, and I'm sure that that will help you to have a better understanding. Again, I think that this flowchart is great for answering the questions of what kind of graph do I need to make with the data that I have. As always, thank you so much for watching.